Do you now denounce right-wing thugs who committed attacks on Muslims and on mosques?
I absolutely condemn all violence, especially against Muslims and against mosques.
Do you denounce Tommy Robinson?
I denounce him for everything bad he said about Islam, and I cannot be his friend or support him. You condemn Israel?
I do.
Condemn Israel and their genocide?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. If you're watching this video and it's Salah time, please pause it and go pray, and come back when you're done. Please check out the description section of this video to support the channel. As the British public and the Muslim community unite in London to put an end to far-right riot mobs terrorising the UK, Piers Morgan interviewed one of the online instigators that incited the riots via misinformation, that being Andrew Tate, who is ironically a Muslim and the son of African American and Irish migrants. Surprisingly, Piers Morgan put Andrew Tate to task and was very supportive of the British Muslim community as well as people seeking asylum in the UK. I must admit, I never thought I'd be agreeing with Piers Morgan, someone who I've been critical of in his coverage of Israel and Palestine, over Andrew Tate on a topic concerning Muslims. But here we are. Let's look at the first clip where Piers Morgan confronts Andrew Tate about the misinformation Tate spread online that contributed to far-right thugs rioting in the UK.
There were far-right thugs who were leading this, and they were attacking mosques. They were chanting anti-Muslim chants. It was put out falsely on social media that the person who did this was a Muslim. Not just a Muslim, but a Muslim who came in on one of the small boats, part of the very contentious ongoing issue. So he was supposedly a Muslim. Not true. Supposedly came in on a small boat. Not true. Supposedly on an MI6 watch list as a potential terrorist. Not true. None of this was true. And so on the back of that, far-right thugs who led this went up and attacked mosques, and they went and attacked hotels with asylum seekers, and they was trying to set fire to them. Those are acts of despicable violence. The ones who were leading it, who were committing the acts of violence and making the threats against the Muslim community, were doing so because they had been completely misled about who had done this. It was not a Muslim. It was not an illegal immigrant. It was not somebody on the MI6 watch list. It was none of those things. And I feel particularly incensed, by the way, that the deaths of these 3 young girls have been hijacked in such a reprehensible manner to attack Muslims when a Muslim had nothing to do with it. You posted a picture saying, this is the man from Cardiff that murdered the little girl straight off a boat, you said. He wasn't straight off a boat because this wasn't the person who perpetrated the crimes. This image is of Kasonga Mabulu, who was arrested in Ireland in 2023 for a random knife attack at Dublin airport. No, you're posting complete disinformation.
Oh, I'm sorry,
it's not okay.
Sir. Did I get the wrong stabber? Oh, I apologize.
Yeah, you did.
Piers Morgan, of course. I got the wrong stabber.
Yeah, you did.
He certainly looked very Welsh to me.
Nigel Farage has literally just chucked you under a monumental bus. He's gone on LBC radio and he said the reason that he himself was promoting complete nonsense about the person who committed these heinous crimes was because of people like you. Andrew Tate, he names you. He says that you were responsible for spinning disinformation, which he was dumb enough to believe.
I was a fan of Nigel Farage. Even if he sells me down the river, even if he says I'm a bad person, that's his prerogative and that's his decision to make. I still believe he's the best choice as a leader for the UK. Well, I never said he was a Muslim. I never said he was a Syrian. I never said he was on the MI6 watch list. The only thing I could have got incorrect is that he was an undocumented migrant. And if Nigel Farage has done that, that's his decision. He'll have to live with his conscience. The London Bridge attack, he was born in Pakistan. A large contingent of the people committing terror attacks in the UK and the most heinous crimes are not natively English people.
You've spent the last week spewing complete fake news bullshit. I would say you've also been spewing stuff that is blatantly racist.
Every picture of him is he's a kid.
Honestly,
they keep saying he's from Cardiff.
The Matrix didn't pretend he was born in Cardiff. You've been posting cartoons of people coming in illegally armed on little boats because you want people to think that the person that did this was that person, but he wasn't.
I'm a Muslim myself, so there's no reason why I want any kind of violence against Muslims. There's no Muslim alive who can teach me to hate anybody, and there's no white man alive who can teach me to hate anybody. There's no hate in my heart, there's only love. But when you have love, you have protectiveness, and you have to feel a protectiveness for the things you care about.
The person who's been charged with the crimes of killing these poor girls is not an illegal migrant. You wanted people to believe this was one of the people who'd come over on a boat illegally into this country, part of the so-called invasion.
I agree with Piers when he said that misinformation online led to far-right thugs attacking mosques and engaging in anti-Muslim chants up and down the country. And Piers correctly pointed out that the Southport attacker was not Muslim, was not a migrant, and was not on the MI6 watch list for being an Islamic extremist, and in fact was a non-Muslim British citizen. I also agree with Piers when he said it is disgusting how bigots hijacked the tragic loss of life of 3 little girls to engineer online propaganda for Muslims to be attacked when Muslims had nothing to do with it. Another rare W for Piers. Piers correctly scolded Andrew for posting a picture of a random man at the height of all the online speculation, who was not the Southport attacker but was involved in a separate incident in Dublin, and instead of apologising for this, Tate responded with sarcasm, saying the man was involved in a similar crime, as if that makes it okay to post his image in connection to a different incident. This is an L for Andrew. If you're wrong, just admit it. Piers then went on to tell Andrew that right-wing politician Nigel Farage, another instigator in inciting the UK riots, sold Tate out during a radio interview by saying he believed Andrew's misinformation and that is why he spread his own. And Andrew surprisingly continued to simp for Farage by saying he still supports him and feels he would be the best option of a political leader in the UK. I have 2 points to make on this. Firstly, if a right-wing bigot like Farage, who himself spreads Islamophobia online, fell for Tate's misinformation about the perpetrator being an illegal immigrant, how can Tate deny that a bunch of far-right couch potatoes wouldn't fall for it either? And secondly, how can Tate endorse an anti-Muslim politician as a leader of a country, especially as a Muslim himself, and especially since he speaks negatively about him? To be fair, Andrew stated he never said the Southport attacker was Muslim or on a MI6 watch list, which is true. But then, in his usual recent schizophrenic fashion, he went on to speak about the London Bridge attacker being born in Pakistan and said terror incidents in the UK are carried out by people who are not British. That incident happened in 2019. As far as I know, there have been no Islamic extremism incidents in the UK since then, and there have been plenty of non-Islamic ones since then, with these riots being a prime example. The London Bridge statement just seemed like Tate was throwing Muslims under the bus to justify the far-right reaction. The fact is that the majority of Muslim immigrants in the UK don't commit acts of extremism. Only a tiny minority have done so, and everyone, including the Muslim community, condemned them for that. Piers correctly called out Andrew posting racist memes to further imply the Southport attacker was an illegal immigrant, even after it was revealed he was born in the UK. Tate's response was that as a Muslim, he doesn't want violence against fellow Muslims. He also said he has protectiveness for things he cares for, but I have to make the point. Where was that protectiveness when Muslims in mosques were being targeted? He could have come out immediately online and asked for this to stop, which he didn't do. Let's look at the next clip where Piers grills Andrew about the backlash he's received from Muslims for supporting Islamophobe Tommy Robinson.
And here's the interesting thing about your position with regard to your conversion to Islam and becoming a Muslim. Muslims, as you know, have been ranting about you for the last few days and utterly betraying them because you've decided to associate yourself with Tommy Robinson, who is a far-right thug, who has been spewing utter horrible Islamophobic anti-Muslim rhetoric all week, and yet you have not distanced yourself from him. So the Muslim community in the UK now view you as part of the enemy too.
Well, I pray for my brothers. The information I've seen and the replies I've seen have not been hateful from the Islamic community. Saying to Tommy Robinson that I will debate him on issues, I don't think is failing to distance myself. I debate you all the time, Piers, and we disagree on basically everything. I'm happy to argue with Tommy because we disagree on so many different points of view, and I think it's very important that we have conversation. The reason these riots are happening in the first place is because everybody's afraid to talk. I'm prepared to sit down with somebody I don't like and don't agree with.
That's complete nonsense.
I'm prepared to talk to Tommy.
That's nonsense. The reason the riots are happening is people like you and Tommy Robinson have been spewing utter disinformation, which has led people to believe that the person that perpetrated these despicable crimes was an illegal Muslim migrant who was on the MI6 terror watch list.
Firstly,
right. I'm saying you and Tommy Robinson,
let's be careful.
between you, I'm saying between you,
but
you
where's
put
the logic
out there
failure?
a completely false impression.
There's a logic failure of lumping me in with somebody who I don't agree with and saying, oh, you and him
So do you
said
denounce
X.
Tommy Robinson?
He's
denounce him?
Completely incorrect on his view of Islam.
Do you denounce him for inciting the rioting?
I denounce him for everything bad he said about Islam. He's absolutely incorrect, and I cannot be his friend or support him for that reason.
For inciting the rioting by telling people it was
a
Muslim illegal migrant.
It's not for me to decide who has incited the rioting, and it's not for you to decide.
Well, you can't denounce that.
I'm not going to sit here and say who's in charge of the riots because nobody knows.
Telling people he was an illegal Muslim.
I think Tommy is wrong about Israel, just like you were, because you were supporting the genocide in Gaza, and I stood up against you for that. I think Tommy's wrong on a whole bunch of issues.
Genocide
However,
in Gaza.
he has a voice Yes, you were. He has a voice, and I'm prepared to sit here and debate with him, and I'm prepared to correct him on the things he's wrong about. And for you to sit and then you support a genocide, and you're going to say I'm a bad person for saying that little girls shouldn't get stabbed by people who don't belong in the UK in the first place.
You have boxed yourself into a position now where your own Muslim community in the UK are enraged with you because they believe you are siding with Tommy Robinson, who is leading a far-right series of attacks on Muslims and mosques and is being blatantly Islamophobic in the process. And you know that. And so what do you say to the Muslim community who believe that's what you're doing?
Well, if there's a small contingent of the Muslim community which believe that, I've yet to see so much vitriol like you're pretending exists. And I don't care what kind of Islamic person you are, to come along and tell me I should hate somebody else because of Islam is not the kind of Islam I prescribe to. I love all of my Islamic brothers, and I also love every Christian, Buddhist, and Hindu. I've actually seen huge support from the Islamic community. That's what I've seen.
Right, so a white supremacist anti-Semite, Nick Fuentes, blames Zionist plants for amplifying and directing these riots. And you retweet him.
Do you know who he's talking about when he says that? He's talking about Tommy Robinson, who's openly Zionist. Tommy and you do work for the same people, so that is interesting that you want to try and bring this point up. Do you believe Tommy Robinson incited these things? Tommy is a Zionist.
Just to be clear then.
But you agree with the first part of the tweet.
So to be clear
I don't know
then,
why you're sitting here trying to use it as a gotcha when you agree with the tweet yourself.
Do you now denounce right-wing thugs who committed attacks on Muslims and on mosques in the last week? And do you therefore condemn Tommy Robinson for inciting it?
I absolutely condemn all violence, especially against Muslims and against mosques. I think that by having open conversation with the people I disagree with, I did not see myself as aligning with them, but perhaps this is a perception I need to address, of course.
Again, Piers was correct when he said Muslims felt betrayed by Andrew for aligning with Tommy Robinson, a man who consistently spews anti-Muslim propaganda and led the far-right attacks on Muslims and mosques across the UK from a distance. Tate's refusal to condemn Tommy is why the backlash from Muslims was so strong. Andrew, in response to Piers, went into denial mode. His first lie was that he simply wanted to debate and correct Tommy Robinson, not support him, which, as you can see from his now deleted tweet, is completely false. He also denied receiving backlash by saying most of the things he saw online from Muslims was supportive. This is not true. The majority of Muslims felt it was disgraceful how he was endorsing Tommy Robinson. Tate then falsely said the riots happened due to people not communicating properly, which Piers opposed him on by reiterating that the riots were caused by viral misinformation that Tate, Tommy and others put out, which led rioters to believe the Southport attacker was a Muslim illegal immigrant. Again, to be fair, Tate once again said he didn't say the guy was a Muslim. However, he did endorse others who did say it was a Muslim and is still sitting on the fence in regards to siding with Muslims, despite Muslims having no involvement in this whatsoever. Piers Morgan asked Andrew to denounce Tommy Robinson for inciting anti-Muslim riots. Tate in response denounced Tommy for his views on Islam, which is good. Tate also said he can't be friends with Tommy or support him because of those views, which is also good. But we must note, this is a stance he took only after Muslims critiqued him online and informed him that the Qur'an prohibits us from befriending enemies of our religion. However, Tate refused to denounce Tommy for inciting the riots, maybe because it would mean he would have to own up to his part in inciting them also. Andrew did, however, call Tommy Robinson a Zionist supporter and said Piers Morgan was one also. This is probably one of the only W's for Andrew in the whole interview. Piers responded that Andrew retweeted that the riots were orchestrated by Zionist plants. I believe so too. Tate said the Zionist plant the tweet referred to was Tommy Robinson and that Piers Morgan is also a Zionist plant, and that ironically Piers agrees with the tweet despite trying to use it as a gotcha moment because Piers is also blaming Tommy Robinson for the riots. Andrew did at the very least condemn all attacks against Muslims and mosques, and then in a roundabout way said that he should reassess his position in regards to Tommy Robinson due to how it was perceived. Let's look at the last clip where Piers Morgan asks Andrew Tate to condemn his involvement in inciting the riots and to apologise to Muslims.
You told your millions of followers that it was an illegal migrant who had committed these crimes. That was a lie. Are you prepared to apologise for that lie?
It was a migrant as opposed to an illegal migrant. So I was incorrect.
It wasn't. He was born in Wales.
As opposed to an illegal migrant.
He was somebody born here and was legally allowed to be in the country. Do you personally, Andrew Tate, believe if you're born in the United Kingdom, you're British or not?
I believe if you're born in the UK, that you're from the UK.
You believe they are British. They rioted in direct response to a social media-led campaign of disinformation which told them that the person who killed these little girls was an illegal immigrant Muslim who was on an MI6 terror watch list.
This is very important.
None of those things were true. You have a responsibility to be accurate. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And I was 95% accurate, which is more accurate than the BBC's ever been about anything. Or you, for extension, most of the time. You've been wrong a whole bunch. Do you condemn Israel? Do you remember that? October 7th, do you condemn?
I do.
Condemn Israel and their genocide? Oh, it's about time.
You spew a lot of untruths, and I'm simply asking you, when you're wrong and what you say helps influence minds to go and commit riots, as it did, because you and Tommy Robinson, between you and others who were amplifying and spreading this bullshit about who this person was, ended up with rioting against Muslims who had nothing to do with the killing of those girls.
Pierce.
And you, as a Muslim of all people, should have been the first to denounce
it. Of course,
it.
Pierce.
Would you like to apologise for spreading that wrong information?
I believe that I was 95% accurate and got a detail wrong. I didn't get anything important wrong. A 17-year-old man stabbed little girls in a Taylor Swift concert. And
people attacked asylum seeker hotels because they believed it was an illegal migrant.
Said that anyone who says anything online is causing the riots themselves directly, and they're directly responsible. And there's no powder keg in the UK due to a failure of the policing and the judiciary and the politicians. Pierce, the things you're advocating for are going to cause more death and destruction than that vaccine you pushed or that country you support as they bomb little children.
Would you like to take this opportunity finally to tell the rioters to stop rioting?
Absolutely.
These riots happened because far-right thugs acted on false information that the perpetrator of these wicked crimes against these 3 little girls that were killed and many others that were seriously wounded was an illegal Muslim who come into the country, was on an MI6 terror watch list. That is why these riots happened, and that was all a despicable lie designed to make people have completely the wrong idea. And hang on, and as a result of those lies, mosques, Muslim mosques belonging to your religion that you've converted to, were then attacked.
Answer to God.
As were asylum seeker hotels, because people believed it was an illegal migrant when it wasn't. And you should be the first to say that anyone that spread any of those false rumours about him being a Muslim, about him being an illegal immigrant, about him being on the MI6 terror watch list, you should condemn unreservedly anyone who spread any of those false rumours, because they're the things that inspired these riots.
I actually want to speak to all the non-Muslims who are watching this. If you read your history and you understand how the political class have lied to us to get us into all of these forever wars, they've tried very hard to make you believe that Muslims are your enemy. And there's been a large propaganda campaign by the Western media machine to make sure you feel that way. I assure you that 99.9% of Muslims think just like you, feel just like you, and they're good people. And I don't want anyone to instantly assume that Muslims have committed a violent crime because a violent crime has happened.
So Andrew's response to Piers telling him to apologise for spreading misinformation was doubling down by saying the British-born Southport attacker is still a migrant because of his skin colour and ethnic background. However, by that logic, that would also mean Andrew himself is a migrant. Then Tate contradicted himself when Piers asked him if he believes ethnic people born in the UK are British or not, to which Tate replied they are British. And this is where he lost the argument. He's still pandering to far-right bigots that believe all non-whites are not British, even if they're born in the UK, despite believing the opposite himself. It was hypocritical of Piers to demand accuracy from anyone when he himself has gotten many facts wrong, as Tate pointed out, but I get the point he was making. And Andrew getting Piers to condemn Israel is another rare W he achieved during this segment. But with that being said, this interview did more for Piers Morgan's image in the eyes of the Muslim community than it did for Andrew Tate, as Piers came across more pro-Muslim than Tate did. Andrew's position, as he said, is that the UK government, the UK legal system, and the UK police, all in regards to immigration, caused the riots. There is truth in the failings of these institutions when it comes to immigration, but this did not cause the rioting. The rioting was caused by pinning the horrible loss of life of 3 children on an imaginary Muslim migrant that pushed people over the edge. And yes, there is nothing wrong with free speech, as long as the free speech is not bigoted misinformation and outright prejudicial lies. At the very least, Tate told the rioters to stop rioting at Piers's request, and told non-Muslims to stop stereotyping Muslims, because most of us are just regular people. Hopefully the people of Britain from all backgrounds will continue to come together like they did in London to oppose these rioters, so we can get back to being a diverse nation that respects all of our respective cultures and beliefs. Thank you for watching. Make sure to join my free Telegram group via the link in the description, where we as Muslims can speak freely and without censorship about issues like this. And remember to like, subscribe and become a channel member for access to exclusive content. Until next time, inshallah, Jazakallah khair.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah.